The fallen angel descends to earth. The Exorcist strikes with thunder. In 2023, the absolutely thrilling exorcism drama. The Pope's Exorcist delivers non-stop suspense and horror. On a desolate night, Father Gabriele Amorth walks into a house carrying a case. His expression is solemn, but upon seeing a young girl still doing her homework, Amorth approaches her with concern, offers some comfort, and then watches as her mother takes her away. It turns out that the man of the house has been possessed by a demon, and Amorth's mission is to perform an exorcism on him. Standing by the bedside, he sees the man bound at his limbs, his face twisted in a grotesque expression, refusing to respond to the priest's questions. Amorth takes out his token, and under the power of the holy light, the demon shows signs of fear. Using words to provoke the demon, Amorth magnifies its weaknesses, making it struggle in terror. Seizing the moment when the demon is at its weakest, Amorth drives it into a wild boar. The next second, the man regains his senses, signaling Amorth's success in exorcism. However, not all cases involve demons. 98% of people do not need an exorcism. Most suffer from mental disorders, and some merely have psychological issues. Only 2% of cases remain unexplainable. Because Amorth performed exorcisms without Vatican approval, he was questioned by the Church. Amorth tries to defend himself with statistics, but some still oppose him, arguing that exorcism is a baseless concept. Amorth responds, "If demons don't exist, then what is the purpose of the Church?" In truth, Amorth is highly skilled, but some wish to strip him of his title as Chief Exorcist, even using the case of a girl's suicide as an excuse to challenge him. Amorth retorts, "My position was appointed by the Pope. If you have any complaints, take it up with him." The story shifts to a mother and her 2 children. Struggling financially, Julia takes her kids to Spain. Her late husband left behind an abandoned church. If she renovates and sells it, she could make a decent profit. However, after more than a year without maintenance, the church has fallen into disrepair. Father Tomas briefly introduces them to the church, but Julia's eldest daughter, Amy, proves to be troublesome. Her younger brother, Henry, even deliberately wears a mask to scare her. With nothing else to do, Henry begins exploring their new home. As he walks down a corridor, he hears eerie whispers. Following the sound, he looks into a crack in the wall, but sees no one. Soon after, strange events begin to unfold. On their first night in the house, Julia hears mysterious knocking. Checking the stairs, she finds nothing. Just then, a noise comes from Henry's room. Seeing her son sound asleep, Julia chooses not to disturb him. Strangely, as soon as she leaves, Henry suddenly opens his eyes. The next day, a worker discovers a hollow in the wall, sparking curiosity. But when they use an open flame to inspect it, an explosion suddenly erupts. The injured worker is rushed to the hospital. At that moment, Amy lets out a terrified scream. Julia hurries back to check, only to be shocked when her son speaks.
"You're all going to die."
Henry hasn't uttered a word since his father's death over a year ago. Alarmed, Julia takes Henry to the hospital immediately. After a series of examinations, doctors find his body completely normal. They suggest that Henry may be suffering from a mental illness, prescribe sedatives, and dismiss them without further concern. Back home, Henry's condition worsens. During a power outage, Julia holds Henry close to comfort him. As Amy restores the electricity, Henry suddenly goes berserk. Terrified, Julia backs away, and Henry lifts his shirt to reveal the word hate carved into his stomach while shouting, "Bring the priest!" Soon, Father Tomas arrives, only to be flung across the room in the next second. News of Henry's possession reaches the church. Given the rapid progression of the possession, the Pope takes the matter seriously. He assigns Amorth to investigate. The incident took place at the San Sebastian Monastery in Spain, a site that had previously caused trouble for the church. Sensing a great evil emanating from the location, the Pope warns Amorth to be fully prepared. Without delay, Amorth rides his motorcycle to Spain. Upon reaching the church, he immediately senses a heavy aura of resentment. As he wipes holy water on himself for protection, Father Tomas rushes out to greet him. As the Vatican's chief exorcist, Amorth's reputation precedes him, and Tomas is honored to introduce him to the family. Julia, surprised by the church's involvement, realizes the gravity of the situation. With the family's permission, Amorth heads upstairs to see Henry. The demon ignores his arrival, but as soon as Amorth sits down to recite a prayer, the demon awakens within the boy. Amorth immediately brandishes his token, and under its power, The demon child reveals itself. Shocked, Amorth recognizes that this is no ordinary demon. He demands to know why it possesses the child. The demon sneers. Destroying this innocent body brings me pleasure, but I much prefer breaking the souls of exorcists. Its true target is not the boy, but Amorth himself. The demon scoffs at the mention of God, but Amorth knows it is afraid. It knocks away the crucifix, attempting to shatter Amorth's faith, arrogantly declaring that it is a demon far beyond Amorth's power. But Amorth is curious. Just who is this ancient entity? The demon is no fool. It refuses to reveal its name. However, it knows Amorth's name, and even his darkest secrets. It speaks of Amorth's past. During World War II, when he was surrounded by enemies, he cowardly played dead to avoid being shot. The demon then regurgitates a small bird. But what does this bird signify for Amorth? Shaken, Amorth hurriedly leaves the room, suspecting that Tomas had leaked his name to the demon. This only makes his job more difficult. The higher the demon's rank, the more it can infiltrate. A deep unease creeps into Amorth's heart. If the demon possesses him, the consequences will be catastrophic. Amorth then inquires about Henry's condition. Julia mentions her husband's fatal car accident, which Henry witnessed firsthand. It becomes clear that this trauma provided an opening for the demon's possession. Amorth encourages Julia, hoping that her maternal love will help reach Henry, an essential factor in the exorcism. Just then, a knock sounds on Amy's bedroom door. Worried for her brother, she checks on him. The demon opens its eyes and tells her they are already in hell. Terrified, Amy flees back to her room. Strangely, she receives a phone call from her deceased father. Horrified, she tells her mother. Julia seeks help from the priests, but Amorth warns that demons are stronger at night and advises them to rest and avoid confrontation. Meanwhile, Tomas humbly asks for guidance. Amorth states that the only way to exorcise the demon is to learn its name. For now, their only weapon is prayer, for it brings the demon pain. But first, as priests, they must confess their sins. Only through God's forgiveness can they prevent the demon from exploiting their weaknesses. After giving Tomas a brief training session, Amorth takes him straight into battle. The demon continuously mocks the newcomer, Tomas, but Amorth scoffs at its misguided taunts. With the Bible in hand, the two begin their solemn prayers. Racked with pain, the demon lets out furious roars, momentarily distracting Tomas. Amorth quickly pulls him back to focus. Suddenly, the room is engulfed in darkness. The demon has dragged the priests into an illusion. It even manifests as the deceased girl to manipulate Amorth, trying to evoke his guilt. Luckily, Amorth remains steadfast and unmoved. Thomas, however, is not as strong-willed. The demon taunts him about his past relationship, enraging him to the point where he physically lashes out. This is a grave mistake. During an exorcism, one must never physically engage with a demon, and as a result, the ritual is forcibly interrupted. Afterward, Tomas sincerely repents to Amorth. But when the demon's mention of the girl resurfaces, painful memories flood Amorth's mind. She had been someone in need of help, but deceived by the demon, Amorth had abandoned her exorcism, an act that left him with deep guilt. The demon had exploited this to distract him. Now their only hope is to uncover the demon's name as soon as possible. Only then can Henry be saved. As they discuss, Amorth recalls something the demon had said.
You have taken the bait, Amorth.
Realizing that the situation is far more complex than it seemed, it appears that this church holds deeper secrets. Sure enough, Amorth soon discovers an old, dried-up well outside, with a Vatican seal covering its lid. Sensing imminent danger, he hurriedly pries it open. At that moment, strange occurrences erupt inside the house. Amy, trembling under her blankets, is suddenly yanked into the air. A second later, heavy knocking echoes from outside her room. Terrified, Amy hears repeated thudding from inside her closet. Meanwhile, Julia, fast asleep, is embraced by an unseen force. Awakening in terror, she tries to resist, but the demon clamps its hand tightly over her mouth. Tomas also experienced a nightmare, and under the temptation of the devil, he secretly came to the bedside. As he attempts to comfort the boy, the demon suddenly attacks, biting Tomas.
No.
Meanwhile, Amorth has finally opened the well. To investigate, he lights a cloth as a torch, But just as he lowers it, a sudden explosion erupts in flames. Returning to the house, Amorth hears Julia's scream. Just as she is about to be dragged under the bed, Amorth pulls her out in time. At the same time, they hear Amy's desperate cries for help. The priests rush to perform an exorcism. Under the power of the Holy Scripture, the demon is forced away from Amy. For the safety of the mother and daughter, Amorth sends them to the church. After ensuring their well-being, Amorth takes Tomas to examine his discovery. This place was once the site of the Inquisition, where those who refused to convert were persecuted. To further investigate, Amorth finds a crack in the church's foundation, possibly leading to the same well. Breaking through the stone wall, they descend to the bottom. To their astonishment, they find a burial chamber. At the center lies a corpse, wearing an archbishop's protective ring. It becomes clear that the cage wasn't meant to imprison him. It was meant to protect him. The purpose of this was to prevent the demon from escaping if an exorcism failed. But what was it that had trapped them here? To uncover the mystery, Amorth instructs Tomas to open the iron gate. Little do they know that this gate leads straight to hell. Amorth recalls the key. After searching the guardian's body, he finds it. Unlocking the iron door, they press forward into the depths of the passage. Before them lies a decayed skeleton. Amorth recognizes it immediately. This is Brother de Ojeda, one of the greatest exorcists in history. In his skeletal hand is a journal detailing a monk who had been possessed. During questioning, the demon answered from another person's mouth, proof that this powerful demon could possess multiple hosts. The worst part, the exorcist himself was ultimately possessed. Using the exorcist's identity, the demon fueled the atrocities of the Inquisition, while the church, oblivious, covered up the truth. Now it seems that the recent renovations must have released the demon once more. The most terrifying revelation? 200 fallen angels were buried here. The demon seeks to summon them, to destroy the church from within. At that moment, Julia realizes that her daughter is missing. She rushes to Henry's room only to find that the demon has already taken control of both children. Sensing that something is terribly wrong, Julia grabs Amy and pulls her away. But in the next second, the demon seizes them both by the throat. Just as mother and daughter are on the brink of death, Amorth makes a crucial discovery. The journal reveals the demon's true name, Asmodeus, the king of hell. Exposed, the demon weakens. Seizing the opportunity, Amy quickly injects a sedative into Henry. The demon is momentarily subdued. Tomas finally understands the demon's true plan. It deliberately lured Amorth here to possess him, so it could once again commit atrocities under the guise of an exorcist, just as it did centuries ago. Having uncovered the demon's scheme, Amorth devises the next step. Now that they know the demon's name, they can exploit its weakness and defeat it. However, the demon can just as easily use their weaknesses against them. To strengthen themselves, both priests repent once more. Amorth confesses to his past, a battlefield where all his comrades perished, leaving only him to survive. Burdened by guilt, he had once abandoned an exorcism, handing it off to another priest, which ultimately led to the death of a girl. Haunted by this failure, he seeks God's forgiveness. Now absolved, Amorth resolves to perform the exorcism again. Standing before the demon, it lays out its terms. Surrender your body to me, and I will spare the child. As the priests pray, the demon distorts reality with illusions, but neither Amorth nor Tomas wavers. After relentless prayers and attacks, the demon suddenly falls silent. Henry regains consciousness and calls for his mother's help, but in a shocking twist, the demon reveals a chilling truth. It has now possessed Amy. With her body grotesquely contorted, Amy scurries up the ceiling. As everyone is momentarily distracted, the demon once again uses Henry to launch a surprise attack. Julia is strangled by her own daughter, while Tomas is left gasping for breath. To save them, Amorth lets go of his fears and calls the demon to himself. In the blink of an eye, the demon possesses Amorth. The family is freed, but Amorth has become the ultimate sacrifice. Chasing everyone away, the resilient Amorth fights back against the possession. Determined to thwart the demon's plan, he attempts to end his own life by hanging, but the demon won't allow it. Under its control, Amorth's body is drawn to the burial chamber. With its summoning complete, the fallen angels descend upon the world. By the time Thomas arrives, Amorth's consciousness is nearly lost. Refusing to surrender, Tomas continues to pray, desperately trying to awaken Amorth. In the next moment, the demon is lifted into the air. Tomas delivers the final blow. He calls out the demon's name, and it is violently expelled. Amorth regains control of his body, but as Thomas rushes forward, he is violently thrown across the room. Determined to break their spirits, the demon manifests their worst nightmares before them. Paralyzed and unable to move, at the crucial moment, Thomas seizes a sacred artifact and strikes the demon. He quickly tosses the crucifix to Amorth, and with unwavering faith, Amorth banishes the demon back to hell in the name of the Father. With their steadfast belief, the two priests have triumphed over the demon. However, their mission is far from over. Brother Deojada's journal reveals 200 sealed locations. Having just exorcised one, 199 more remain waiting to be dealt with. The film stars Academy Award winner Russell Crowe. While the story follows a familiar exorcism formula, Crowe's exceptional performance adds depth and intensity to the film. Based on true events, the story is shrouded in an air of mystery, making it all the more compelling. That concludes this episode. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.